Hi, I'm Deboki, and this is Okie Dokie Boki, and today I want to talk about the fact that as of a few weeks ago, I have officially been on BookTube for 5 years, and I wanted to talk about what that means to me, because obviously I'm kind of excited about it, but also I want to talk about what that means to me in the context of being someone for whom like YouTube has gone from being a hobby, this thing that I do like through BookTube, to also someone like for whom like YouTube is something I do outside of BookTube, like as a professional sort of thing. This is gonna be pretty navel-gazy, I think, even by my own standards, but this is stuff I've been talking about with people in different contexts, because I think like a lot of us are at this point of like, figuring out our relationship to work, figuring out our relationship to like creating stuff, especially for the internet. And so I just kind of like wanted to congeal some of my own personal experiences here with all of that into something like a little bit, hopefully a little bit more coherent. And I think sometimes when we talk about work and creating, it's very easy to like come off very prescriptive, like you're telling people what to do with their own set of choices. And I think that's really difficult because, what is right for you is really dependent on like a lot of things that are very personal and very individual. So I'd rather kind of just like go all in on my own personal navel-gazy kind of approach, so that it can just be kind of like about me and like what was right for me, rather than me saying like, hey, I think this is the right thing for everyone to do. I think a lot of this is very individual and very much like stuff that we all have to sort of figure out what our own values are, what our own personal constraints are, what like also what allowances there are in our lives to make things possible or not possible. If you're new to my channel, here's some quick context. I started this channel 5 years ago, as you may have guessed from the 5-year anniversary stuff. But I started this channel when I was towards the end of doing my PhD in biomedical engineering. And when I started it, it was a BookTube channel. I mostly focused on books, but I did also have this sort of like little side series that I called Not My Thesis, where I talked about like that sort of end of grad school phase of my life, and also just kind of some general like academia feelings, science feelings and stuff, and just, stuff I was thinking about as the end of my PhD approached. That was right around when I was starting to like kind of more seriously debate whether or not I wanted to stay in academia after I graduated or like pursue a career in research, or if I wanted to go like a whole different path and go down the science writing route. And that's actually the path that I chose. I'm now a freelance science writer, and most of what I do is oriented around multimedia and particularly video. If you don't really have a sense for what a freelance science writer is, I'll link to a video I made like a while ago about like the variety of different jobs there are out there, because science writer is a description that covers a lot of different types of things. But for me, like I said, most of what I focus on is multimedia, and especially like educational content. Some of that is writing. I write for the show Journey to the Microcosmos, which is a show about microbes. I also host Crash Course Organic Chemistry. This room is actually the room that we film in because of the pandemic. I had to like paint a wall. The set is literally like right around the corner. I can show you guys. Let's see. Yes, this is our set with my dinky lights and not the actual official Crash Course lights. So yeah, like I said, over the past 5 years, YouTube has gone from a thing that I like started doing as a hobby, and then I think like a lot of people on YouTube, and I guess like a lot of internet content creators who go from doing something as a hobby, it is now also a thing that I do for both fun and profit. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes, because that's actually kind of the crux of what I want to get to, like what it's like to have this thing that's been a hobby also become a part of my work life. Because I was honestly like really nervous when I decided to go into science writing and like realize that the path that I was going to be going down was like this thing that was so adjacent to what I do for fun. I was really nervous about what that balance was going to be like, and it's still very much a work in process, but this like 5-year BookTube anniversary kind of felt like, a good place to just like kind of pause and reflect on what that transition has been like. Part of the reason why I am so excited about having made it to 5 years is because when I started this channel, I like have this memory of doing one of those BookTube newbie tags, and I'm pretty sure there's this question of like, what is it that you like will take as a sign of success with your channel? And what I thought of was basically like, if I am still posting videos to this channel in 5 years, I'm gonna be pretty proud of myself. I'm gonna take that as a sign of success. And the point wasn't that like if I stopped posting before then, like if I gave up on booktube before I reached 5 years, like that was a sign of failure. I've been on the internet since like elementary, middle school, whatever. And so, I have participated in a lot of communities. I have been in parts of the internet where I have made things. And so like, these are like parts of my life that I've like come and gone. And so I'm very used to just like, getting very excited about something, having a good time and getting something meaningful out of whatever that internet community is, and then kind of like moving on to something else. But booktube felt like the first thing that I was like really kind of committing to, because like I had my name attached, I had my face attached, I talked about it with people I knew in real life. Part of the reason why I decided I was going to do that is because I was like kind of thinking about maybe doing career in science writing, and I knew that if I was going to do that, I needed to build some kind of portfolio. Creating a booktube channel is not a smart way to create that portfolio. The actual way to do this, the way to do this like intelligently, that will give you skills that you can like use to both like write science articles and learn how to pitch articles and make connections in like the science writing world, is to actually work for publications, whether that's your university newspaper or whatever. Like these are the actual things that people will tell you to do. They will not say like, hey, start a tiny little booktube channel and talk about whatever books you're interested in. But I am not smart. I did not go that route. And so for some reason, I decided that I was just gonna hop onto YouTube and talk about books, because that's what I wanted to do. And it helped that I could also use this channel to talk about science adjacent stuff, but like I was not consciously setting out to make a science channel. But the thing I can say with a massive amount of hindsight is that while it was very stupid to do things this way, I think what it actually reflected on was like the kind of science writing I wanted to do, but just like I didn't know it yet, or I didn't know how to articulate that it was the kind of writing I wanted to do. A lot of the writing I love to do is stuff that dissects cultural or personal experiences in science. I think that's something that especially kind of informs the way I approach writing for A Journey to the Microcosmos. And also, in addition to like just kind of the content, on like the stylistic side, I guess, or whatever, the medium kind of side, I guess, I really love writing for voice. I really love getting to write in a way that's conversational and that feels like you're actually interacting with an audience who is like watching you or listening to you. Like that is a fun thing about writing for YouTube. And booktube is where I got to learn and practice both of those things. And it's why like, even though there are times where like, sure, the book community sometimes kind of frustrates me, I'm also very thankful for it, because like this community is full of people who are very smart and who have like helped me figure out what it is I'm actually trying to do, whether that's like in how they like analyze books or how they present their thoughts about those books. But like I said, that is with a lot of hindsight. When I started this channel, I didn't know that. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do this and I'm going to hopefully show at least some interest in making videos. But I didn't actually think that that was really gonna work. When I was applying for jobs and internships, I think I was like about 2 years into having this channel, and I was like very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. So like, this was an even smaller channel at this point. And like, I'm still a small channel, but I was much smaller then. And I just kind of thought like it was gonna be kind of a liability for this to be like the example of my work that I was giving people. First of all, it is weird to have a line on your resume that is YouTuber. And then also it's just like, my samples, me presenting this channel, like even if I like am proud of my content, it's not like I'm demonstrating any exceptional lighting or sound skills or anything. And it wasn't until I went to an internship fair and actually talked to like potential employers directly that I actually realized like, hey, actually, yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. The thing that actually matters is the fact that, yeah, you make videos. Like you like doing this, you have committed to it, and you've shown a willingness to learn how to make video, as well as a starting place that like a lot of people don't necessarily have, like with making video, editing video, and working in YouTube. And I think when you're on YouTube, it's really easy to forget that, because like when I am on YouTube, I am just constantly in awe of how good other people are at making videos. And so like, not only do I know that I'm not unique, I know that there are people who make better videos than me, because I am always surrounded by them when I log onto this site. But at the same time, like there's a whole world of people out there who are not on YouTube or who are not making videos for YouTube. So even though I know a lot of people who have like a combination of science and video backgrounds. To a lot of potential employers, we're actually kind of rare compared to people who have primarily science backgrounds or primarily video backgrounds. This is probably going to be shifting with like the fact that there are generations now growing up with like different internet and social media tools that make making video and audio a lot more easy to learn, a lot more accessible, which I think is really, really exciting. But for me, when I was applying for these jobs, I underestimated the value of just like having shown the commitment to making videos, even if it was just on a small channel. And again, that's like where I am super thankful for like BookTube's existence, because I think one of the reasons why it was easy for me to commit to BookTube, even as a small channel, is because this is just a really good community full of like really great people who are excited to talk about books. And also the great thing about BookTube is like people on BookTube are not like just interested in books, like they are also curious about other things. So like when I made my Not My Thesis videos, like people like were receptive to that. They like, some people were coming at that from the grad school experience, some people were coming without grad school experience, and that was all like really cool for me because it was like fun. Like I can talk about this weird like experience that I'm going through with people and get like kind of different perspectives on that. And that's the thing that like BookTube was really, really great for. It meant that I could like talk about smut one week and talk about science the next. And that is the kind of YouTube channel I like can easily commit to being. After grad school, I got a video internship at Scientific American, but I was nervous that, you know, this thing that I was doing as a hobby was like going to potentially feel more like a burden because I now had it like overlapping significantly with the thing that I was going to be doing during my workday. Like I had that fear of like, you know, is this thing gonna be a lot less fun? That was the first year I went to BookNet Fest, and I was on a panel that Nicole from Sweeney Says and also from Nonfiction Book Club, she was moderating this panel, and it was about like finding balance like as a YouTube channel. And I like remember Nicole asking me about how I felt about working in video and also like having it be, you know, this hobby thing. And I remember it because like it was one of those questions where I was like, aha, like yes, I feel that question because I don't know the answer yet, but like I'm glad you asked it because I feel like I just needed to be reminded that this is a question that is lingering in my mind. I had just finished grad school. I had wrapped up an experiment on Friday, started my internship on Monday, and gone for several months of just working at that internship. And I didn't realize that I was burnt out until I got to the end of that internship and was trying to work up the energy and motivation to start working on my next round of applications to figure out what I was going to do next. I try to be kind of cautious about when I use burnout to describe myself because I think it's a phrase that has come to mean a lot of different things to different people based on their experiences. So it's a little bit hard to standardize. For me, I mostly apply it to two distinct periods in my life. The first is towards the end of my third year of grad school, and this was a period where in the span of a month, my grandmother died, I had to defend my prospectus, and also I got married. So there was a lot going on, just like a whole roller coaster of stuff and work. And my second burnout period is that time after I had just finished grad school. Like I had gone from like cycling through so many experiments as quickly as possible to kind of wrap up this paper so that I could leave, and then immediately moving to a new city, jumping into my internship right away, learning a lot of stuff on the job, and having like some things in that environment that were just like a little bit less than ideal and like a little bit tough in some ways, and then having to figure out right after that what I was going to be doing next. And really what was at the center of both of those periods for me was me needing to figure out what my relationship with work was going to be. I am someone who likes work, like I like keeping busy. I think what's hard is figuring out what value you're deriving from work and making sure that like it's not the kind of value where it's really easy to subsume your entire personality with work. And also making sure that work is not a thing that is taking over your life, because that's like not what it means to enjoy something, is like having it dominate your life. But because of the way that society works, it is easy for like, if you do like work, or also if you like a lot of people like me, like, you know, derive a lot of validation from it, it's very easy to like subsume all of your other like wants and needs to the pursuit of work. And so, yeah, I just think these two periods of burnout were like places where I needed to reevaluate. And so for the first burnout period, what I really kind of came out of it realizing was that I needed to set more boundaries around my work time, especially like how much time I was spending in lab, and also when I was going home, making sure I wasn't still working on lab work so that I could actually just like have some some time to enjoy for myself. And that was really important for me for surviving the rest of grad school. And I think indirectly that adjustment helped me realize the sort of like latent desire I had to like go into science writing was like actually a thing that I wanted to pursue. It still took me a few years to work up the courage to pursue that, and like at the expense of pursuing like what I had thought were my safer choices of going for academia or research. Because I think one of the things that was difficult for me is that I had this sort of like hierarchy of work in my mind, where in my mind it was like, oh, if you're doing the research and you're in the lab, somehow that's more meaningful because you're actually doing it. And that's, more important than just talking about it. And I think taking like the time to step away from lab and setting these boundaries helped me realize that like, that's not really accurate. There's plenty of people to do the research in the lab. And so like I can go do this other thing and also do something that's important to me and that I really enjoy doing, and that like is not any less meaningful just because it's not in the lab. So yeah, setting those boundaries was a way for me to see that I was wrong and that there's actually like a whole other world of stuff out there to do, including making videos about books. The second burnout period was important to me because it made me realize that I needed to take advantage of the fact that I am married to a person who is both very good and supportive as like a partner, but also very employed, and in a way that like gives me the privilege to pursue a career that is a little bit more on my own terms. At the time, I was really struggling with whether I wanted to take an opportunity that would keep me in New York after the internship for another year, but that would, for various reasons, probably make me unhappy, both personally and professionally, or if I wanted to move to Amherst, where I didn't necessarily have any job opportunities, but that is the place where my husband lives and works. I should say that we had up until that point been doing long distance for basically a decade because of like us being in different grad schools and then having jobs in different states and stuff like that. So at the time that I was making this choice, it felt like I was deciding between like the urge to not be long distance anymore. Like I knew we could do it, but I didn't really want to anymore. But also like this fear that if I didn't stick it out in New York for another year, I wasn't going to be able to build the connections and the skills that I needed to actually get a job in the future. Plus it like felt weird to make myself dependent on my husband for an unknown period of time. Like, that's doesn't make you feel good if you want to be able to have your own independent career. But at the same time, the point of a partnership, is to be partners, and the point is to support each other through these kinds of decisions. And it was clear that like if I stayed in New York for another year, I was not going to become any less burnt out. So I moved to Amherst and I didn't have a job, and it was kind of scary. I was just sort of like applying for stuff, sending cold emails to people. And at some point I was even like, should I like try to make this channel into something I can do as a job? Like, should I make this something I could profit from? And the answer was, and continues to be, no, because I have a lot of respect for people who are able to like consciously grow their platforms. And there are times where I can like dabble in it. But for now, at least, I've realized that like booktube is only fun for me personally, like if I don't think too hard about the numbers. And I'm gonna get back to this in a bit because it's really more about me and my own personal relationship to this as like a hobby, and not how I feel about like how other people should like approach booktube in general. So yeah, like booktube was not going to be a thing that was going to feed me or anything. But luckily eventually I got a job as Hank Green's editorial assistant. And I remember I got the email saying like, hey, you got the job. Like I was standing outside of a Carl's Jr. and like I got the email, walked in, got a Beyond Burger with some extra toppings because I was just like pretty proud of myself. Like I remember watching Vlogbrothers in college, I think, and watching the Lizzie Bennett Diaries at some point and thinking like, that all looks fun. Like that all seems to be a fun thing to do, like having your own YouTube channel, except I didn't know what I could possibly have to talk about if I had my own YouTube channel until I found booktube, and it turns out that I have had plenty to talk about. So yeah, it was all pretty satisfying. And I'm still doing that editorial assistant work, which is a ton of fun because sometimes I'm like looking up the history of Elmer's glue labels, other times I'm looking up like weird fruit facts. So, just a lot of different weird stuff to learn about. And again, like I said in the beginning of the video, there's, other stuff I work on in video, like Journey to the Microcosmos. Also, I've done some work for like nonprofits and academics and industry and stuff. But still at the back of my mind is like this question of like, where does booktube fit in with all of this? Because one thing I can't escape from is the fact that I don't make any money from booktube, except for $9, I think, from the 1 month of AdSense I had before Google decided to shut down my account for reasons that I am like still very unclear on. But yeah, while I absolutely could not in any way, shape, or form make a living off of booktube, Booktube has helped me make a living. Booktube helped me get my first internship, and it's been in the background of many other opportunities that I've gotten. And there's sometimes this weird dissonance between knowing that there are spaces on the internet that rely on my work and, the same skills that I am bringing to Booktube, but that have a large audience and that are able to make money, whereas my Booktube channel has a much smaller audience and doesn't make money. And that statement is strictly about the disconnect. It's not a complaint, because what's clear to me, going back to what I said earlier about consciously working to grow a channel, those spaces that have a larger audience, they have that larger audience because a lot of work went into building that. And if I don't feel like doing that for my own channel, that's fine. There's no rules for me being on YouTube that says I have to build a large audience. Unfortunately, YouTube is structured in a way, and especially the YouTube studio page and the analytics page are really structured in a way to make you feel bad for not building a large audience. But I personally do not have to actually pursue that. And I like it because I feel like it gives me a different relationship with writing for my own channel than I do when I'm working on writing for a larger audience. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And I like having both of those things as part of my writing experience, I guess, right now, because I feel like they give me different challenges and kind of different things to think about in my writing. I think in probably the last 5 or so minutes or whatever, there's probably been a lot of cliches buried in what I've been saying, or maybe not even buried, maybe fully out there about the dichotomy between big creators and small creators or whatever, just creating on the internet in general. And I don't think that these things apply universally. I am talking strictly about me and my own channel and my own experience of this. And yeah, I did kind of used to struggle a little bit more with the disconnect between my personal and professional experience of YouTube, but I've actually come to kind of enjoy that disconnect because I think it gives me a lot of space to be a little bit selfish in how I want to do my own YouTube channel for myself. One of the things that was a process of my second burnout period was figuring out what I wanted to get out of work. When you're creating things, whether that's professionally or personally, your identity is inherently a little bit wrapped up in it, and that can make it a little bit difficult to let go of things that are outside your control. I remember working on this video during my internship where I was getting a little bit frustrated with some of the choices around it, and I remember someone else giving me this advice to basically start thinking about projects that you're working on in this kind of professional setting as projects that you're working on for a client. When you're working for a client, there are times where your work and your expertise is what they are actually seeking out, but then there are times where what matters most is just what they want, what the client wants. And those are things that are ultimately completely independent of you and your personal stakes in the project as a creator, even if your name is attached to it in some way. And that might seem kind of cold advice, especially for the world of creating, where idealistically we want to all just be able to go into our job making whatever sounds most interesting and fun for us. But this is advice that has been super helpful for me in the long run because it's helped me approach projects more with the mentality of delineating between what is a thing where my point of view is essential and kind of the point, and what is a thing where it's not. That's a huge thing for helping me set boundaries for what any given project is for me. And it's also really helpful for me for setting boundaries around what kind of projects I'll even take on and who I'll work for. And when I started out freelancing, I was really scared of it. And there are a lot of ways in which I still find it pretty nerve-wracking and a little bit terrifying. But one of the things that I've really come to value about freelancing is the control it lets me have over my own work life, and the fact that I get to make choices about the kind of work I take on and what kind of schedule I'm going to be making for myself. With that said, while I do like freelancing, I do think the fact that the media ecosystem is dependent on freelancers is not great for media or journalism, and I don't know if I'm going to always feel this way about freelancing for myself either, but I just am talking about this particular moment in my own particular story, where I am right now. I think that Booktube has actually been a thing that's helped me be able to better take that advice about how to approach projects, because it does give me the space where I have something that is just my own bullshit. It gives me a space where I can focus on my own priorities, where my point of view is the main thing that I'm interested in pursuing. When it comes to making videos in a professional capacity, there is a lot of important stuff you have to take into consideration about scheduling and content and presentation and all of those things are super important. It's a mixed bag of constraints, and some of those constraints are frustrating and some of those constraints are inspiring. They force you to be creative, to think about things in a different way than you would have without that constraint in place. And so I like having that like work version of video. It is a thing that is very challenging and I'm learning a lot from it. And going to the audience thing, it is really, really cool to get to see a lot of people get excited about something that you and everyone you've been working with have been like working towards. Like, you know, like seeing people who are excited about picking up a microscope or who are learning organic chemistry, all of that is like really just cool. Like I don't have a more eloquent way to put that. It's just really fucking cool. But I also like having this hobby version of video where I can do things for fun and also challenge myself in ways that, you know, there isn't necessarily space for in other contexts. And I mean, that's like the nature of any kind of work. Like that's not limited to video. It's not even limited to creating. There is a difference between doing something for a job versus doing something for a hobby. That's it. Like I could just sum up the whole video with that. But also this is a hobby that helps me do my job. It helps me practice my writing. It helps me practice my hosting. And yeah, like 5 years ago, I would have been very dismissive of that notion, but now I know it's kind of a real thing. But the paradox of that is that for it to be useful, I have to not think about it too much as being something that is useful or something that is for my job, because otherwise I am too self-conscious about doing this as a professional thing versus a hobby thing. I'm still very early on in my science writing career, and I think my relationship to it is going to change. I think my relationship to YouTube is going to change. I think my relationship to freelancing is going to change. 5 years from now, I might make a whole different version of this video. But what's been striking to me at this moment is that the more I do video and writing as a job, the more important it is to me to have BookTube as an outlet, even if I'm not posting to it as frequently as I did when I was a grad student. Like I said, I like having this little space for my own selfish needs. And I also like that I've found friends in an audience who are willing to indulge me in those selfish needs. So yeah, I guess the whole point of this video, this whole navel-gazing thing, like I talked about myself for so long, the whole point of that was just to say thank you. Whether you're someone who makes videos on BookTube or someone who just watches videos on BookTube, either one, thank you for just making this a really awesome community to be a part of. You know, again, like I said, there are times where the book community is frustrating, but at its core, I feel like the thing that is great is just finding people who are also really excited to just talk about books. And I've learned a lot from it, and I've just gotten a lot out of the friendships I've made here. So thank you guys for doing all of your cool BookTube things. With that said, if you want updates on stuff I've been working on, along with like a little bit of some blabbering about reality TV or some other pop culture thing, you can subscribe to my newsletter, okidokiboki.substack.com. I'll link to it down below. I've been trying to update it a little bit more frequently recently, and so I've been putting that out about like every other week. And yeah, so you can find out more about what I've been working on there. So thank you guys for watching, and bye.